Salazar-Winspear, good morning. Now, starting off, of course, we've been talking about it just now with our correspondent in Beijing, François Hollande's visit to China. There must be a great deal in the French press about it.
Yes, they're all covering it, of course, on the front page. Le Figaro goes straight in with quite a critical angle on this visit, actually. Their headline suggests that Hollande is in a quid pro quo stance with Beijing, saying that he's basically prepared to silence certain sensitive issues in exchange for good relations with the country. Now, they point out what a monumental event this is, the first visit of a French head of state to Xi Jinping since he has been in power. But they get straight to the point about the nature of this trip. It's an economic and financial visit, hoping to strengthen ties between the two countries. And in order to do so, the article suggests that Hollande's prepared to leave out or not talk about China's human rights record, for example, not mentioning Tibet, in order to keep things friendly, because he's pushing really hard for Chinese investment in France. Now, an editorial in the same paper, just lower down on the front page, is suggesting that that might not be working too well, because they say that in terms of the business contracts that the two countries are meant to be doing, there's been a lot of promises but no real ink on paper, so the contracts aren't that forthcoming so far.
Now, while he's away, Olivia, the media have been taking advantage or have been taking the opportunity to question the legitimacy of his administration.
Of course, so he's away on a trip, so while the cat's away, the mice will play, I suppose. Le Parisien is running an article saying, meanwhile, back in Paris, everyone's talking about a reshuffle. Now, they're suggesting that the president's in dire need of a new cabinet. They're calling his first year in office a disaster, so perhaps he's looking to open a second chapter, a more positive era now, and that he needs to breathe life into a cabinet that they describe as worn out. Now, they say Prime Minister Jean-Marc is safe, that apparently the president is happy to keep him on as the Prime Minister, but they do suggest that the finance ministry and the financial sector of the French government might be in line for a shake-up, that Pierre Moscovici and Arnaud Montebourg might be problematic figures. And
each with their own set of problems behind them over the course of the last few months, of course.
Yeah, and looking at France's fortunes right now, that doesn't come as any large surprise. There's also the suggestion that a cabinet of 37 ministers might need to be trimmed a little bit. Now, the Figaro is also covering that story, these rumours, but they do say that they're rumours of a reshuffle, and they warn us not to read too much into it, that they could just be symptomatic of Parisian political, gossip, and they just could show that Hollande's in a rut and he needs to do something, he needs to change something. And this is echoed, of course, by the left-wing daily, Libération, who have this cover asking in a jokey way with a cartoon, who is in charge, who is steering the left. Now, they include a few figures there from the Socialist Party, but obviously what they're suggesting that it's not necessarily President Hollande. They talk about Prime Minister Ayrault. They say that he's in a pretty solid position despite a few hiccups in the recent months, but they really go in for the kill on Hollande, and they say that, again, there's this accusation that he lacks authority, that he's not leading, and the article, actually, the title of this editorial says that François Hollande is everywhere and nowhere, which I found quite amusing because that's a criticism they levelled at Nicolas Sarkozy during his time in office.
To his turn now. Now we've been talking a great deal about Mali this morning, of course, Olivia, and the decision of the United Security Council to put in place the military force that will take over from the French. The French press, meanwhile, have been getting accounts from the military intervention in Mali as those soldiers, the French soldiers, begin to come home, and some of them make for pretty sobering reading.
Yes, absolutely. French soldiers who are coming back from Mali now are giving reports that they were engaged in combat with what are essentially child soldiers, young men of 12 or 14 years old who they believe have been coerced or forced into fighting for the jihadist cause in the north of the country by the Islamists. They say that many of them were drugged, and it presents a real conflict of interests for the French soldiers who are fighting there, of course, because they say that at certain points they were trying not to injure them too much or not to kill them. And there's this quote saying, "We try to catch them or injure them slightly, but if we have no other choice, they remain the enemy."
Olivia, with a look there at the French press this morning. Thank you very much indeed. Just coming up to 20 minutes past 7. In just a moment, it'll be time for Focus with a look at a